Our guest today is an award-winning producer and filmmaker. He's most recognized for the How to Unmake a Bully series that has reached and inspired millions across the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mike Feurstein.
Hello, Zach. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful now that I'm here. Yeah, this is a huge thrill. Like worlds coming together, full circle, all that. Yeah.
About 12 years ago, we recorded this movie at my elementary school called How to Unmake a Bully, and it inspired me to do this project. I'm here to advocate for bullying, and I'm here to talk with Mr. Mike about his experience with bullying and a little bit of background information on the How to Unmake a Bully series.
Happy to be here. My personal experiences. When I was younger, so like elementary school was okay for me. I was considered like the popular one in elementary school. And then fifth grade hit, and they kind of switched around our schools. They redistricted the area, so I had to go to a different elementary school for fifth grade. So I had none of my friends. Maybe a couple followed. So I was, beating down a new path there, and didn't quite find the same level of popularity that I did at my other school. And then middle school hit, and it was all gone. The bottom dropped out, and I was down to, the person that was made fun of on the bus, or the person that was, they try to trip up in the hallway, or that kind of stuff. So it was like little things here and there. And I'm not the type of person to, this sounds weird, but care to stand up for myself. Like I'll stand up for myself when it's time, when it needs to be done. But if it's some schmo making a, lame comment on the bus, I even at a young age, I didn't care what they had to say. I was just like, who are they? I'm going to go home to my friends now and hang out with people that know and love me. I don't care about you. So it never like bogged me down until high school. I was pushed to the floor. My glasses were broken, for the main reason that I stole my lunch back. I was walking down the hallway and someone snatched my lunch, kept walking. It was older than me. I turned around and grabbed my lunch back and was pushed to the ground, glasses broken, threatened. Don't ever do that again, and don't ever do what again? Stand up for myself and grab my lunch back. Don't ever satiate my hunger during, noon. So that was kind of the first. And then throughout that year, there was a lot of kind of, picking on and being the butt of jokes, not being like targeted and put down, but just kind of being the butt of a joke. But I had friends that I loved and cared about. And so I was still able to see past that, but I was looking around at people that couldn't, and at, people that were dealing with what I was going through and that didn't have that strength of character, or just that internal like ability to say, this person means nothing to me, so therefore what they say means nothing to me. And I'll, go to the people that do. That's kind of two answers for that. One, they should care because there are people in this world who do not get over it as easy as others. So like I was interviewed by a reporter who after the interview, he said, I gotta tell you, Mike, I didn't really believe that bullying was a big problem. I saw it in school, but he was a pretty boy. And I don't feel bad saying that because I think he actually said those same words. He didn't really have it happen to him. He had it was happening around him, to people that he kind of knew. And so to him, it wasn't a big deal. Then there's those people who are just bullied all their life, whether because they have some kind of physical deformity or learning disability, or they said something or did something very embarrassing in elementary school, and it just keeps following them up, especially now with social media recording things permanently. I did some pretty embarrassing things in elementary school, but there was nothing recording it. There weren't even security cameras in the school at that point, because the technology would have been like a room full of cameras. So not to date myself, I didn't go to school during the crustacean period, but or the cetacean period. But there were not smartphones or anything like that, so it didn't follow me around. But now, for someone to say, oh, bullying, it's a rite of passage. It's people have to go through it to build character. I do agree that if someone is being bullied, that they should be the biggest part of the solution. What they do, what they say, what they choose to do to deal with it, they should be the largest part of it. But there have to be other components like bystanders helping out, counselors giving the best advice, those people in your life that build your confidence regardless of what you're going through. They're just there for you and with you. So to say, for someone to say, like that reporter, that bullying isn't really a big deal and it doesn't need someone like myself to go into a career helping kids understand what bullying is coming from privilege. It's the same mentality of, well, there's not really an income disparity, or racism's not real. It's because you didn't experience it yourself. So I didn't experience it as bad as most people do, but I still know that it's an issue. What's at stake is someone's health and well-being. We do know that if someone is really beat down as a kid, that they could grow up to be abusive themselves. Learning that is how solutions are found, is through violence, or it's just the psychological need. They replace coping with beating the crap out of somebody or insulting somebody's mother or career. So I feel like the person's future is at stake, who they become, stopping that cycle. And it's also the people around them. There are those lone gunmen that shoot up schools, unfortunately, and that attack. We just had a shooting on the subway in New York, in Brooklyn, yesterday, and it was from a disturbed individual. Who knows what that person went through? I don't want to say that it was bullying, but there's something going on in this person's life that he's not getting the help for. So I feel like bullying is just a small part of all that mental health wellness that isn't being addressed well enough in this country.
What are your thoughts on that, about the people who do, quote unquote, like bully in this world? Like, what's at stake for them later in life?
Anyone who does anything tries a little more the next time. Like the first time you go skiing, just the bunny hills, and then maybe I'll try snowboarding on the bunny hills, and then you know what, I'm pretty good, I'm gonna go on the bigger mountain with my friends now, and you keep on trying. The next time you don't regress. You don't get on the black diamond and say, I'm going to do bunny hills next time, So I feel like anyone who is given that thought that whatever they do doesn't matter, no one's going to ever come after them. You see this in the banking world, you see this in the business world, all these, unethical decisions that are being made by higher ups because no one is checking them. So the next time they're going to try a little more. First time it was calling this person a name, and that got the response I wanted. They cried. They wanted to beat me up. I'm stronger than them, so they're not going to try. I feel good about that. Next time it happens, I'm going to go a little further. I'm going to make them cry so much that they get depressed, and then I'm going to feel bad because I did that. But I'm not going to want to address those feelings of guilt. So I'm going to just say, oh no, that was what I meant to do. Yeah. And then I could do even more next time. And not that everyone who bullies eventually becomes a mass murderer, but there are people that do. And so I feel like the person who is bullying others also has that responsibility to themselves to figure out why they're doing it, put themselves in a situation where they can't anymore. If they're always making fun of theater kids, they should stay away from the fine arts department. If they just can't help it. If you're going on a diet, you don't buy ice cream and keep it in your freezer. There's this idea that we have to, as a society, stay away from the people who are making bad decisions, but that's what's kind of feeding their bad decisions, is this, that they're the pariah, that they're the untouchable problem, so we're going to stay away from them. So now they feel, oh well, if that's where I'm at, then I can do whatever I want. So I think there's also accepting, understanding, coming down to their level, hearing, listening is huge. I've been talking so much. This is a podcast, so I'm talking, but it's unlike me to do this. I normally listen more than I talk, and I tell kids that that's a better leader, that's a better friend, is someone who really absorbs and doesn't just go, oh yeah, I had something like that happen to me too. Oh yeah. And then steamroll over your story,
What do you say to those that think like, oh, bullying's just, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just something that exists. We should just deal with it, or people don't change. Like, what do you say to those people?
There aren't many things in this world that are problems that we aren't trying to solve. And bullying is a problem. So why aren't we trying to solve it? Why not? war is a problem. We're trying to solve that. Bad health is a problem. We're trying to solve that. I want to ask these people, what makes bullying that one thing that doesn't need to be solved? Like, what isn't there to do? So I would say you probably are coming from a place of privilege where it didn't affect you. That's great. Stand aside and let those who want to help help. I tell them that it's a school residency, a project-based, student-run media project, and that's pretty much. I mean, that's the sale point for schools. It's become for many for lack of a better word, a touchstone. Like for you, it's this thing that happened that it's proof for many that there are a lot of people out there trying to help them. So, if I go to a school, and every school I go to, I meet about 90 kids, maybe 75 to 80, in that range, 3 classes full. And I meet all the other kids in the school too when they pass through the hallway, or, third graders will walk through and go, I'm going to be doing that next year. I'm in 4th grade. I'm going to be doing that. Kids who come in 1st grade say, when are we doing the movie? And it's like, oh, in 4th grade. Okay, so in 3 years, I'm going to do the movie. All right. And they know as they go through the years that they're getting closer to it. And that's Saratoga schools for one. That's an honor to me. So to them, it's a rite of passage. It's a chance to have their voice heard. For someone who's going through it, How to Unmake a Bully is a chance for them to tell everyone their story. It's a chance for them to see their friends or their tormentors in a way that they haven't before, and vice versa. The program is a tool that lets kids articulate exactly what they're feeling about bullying. So when you see one of the kids directing, they're directing from a experience. When they say, oh no, you need to yell at her and then stomp her on the foot because that doesn't look real otherwise. Well, I can kind of guess that this person went through something where her friend stomped her on the foot, or gave her this idea of what bullying is. And now she's directing based on that experience or being directed. Like we've had kids who were the classroom bully portray the bully on screen. So then we can say, so why doesn't your character have any friends? Well, instead of saying, why don't you have any friends? Now they're answering for their character, So it becomes, How to Unmake a Bully now is for them an outlet to explain exactly how they're feeling, but with that detached, one step away from it. So they're not bearing their feelings. They're just talking about their character in the movie. So it's also kind of a buffer for them. Kids who wouldn't normally talk about their feelings are now doing it because they're referring to the script and not their own life. One of the girls that was in one of our movies, she raises her hand and goes, yeah, I just wanted to give a compliment to Julia. I had no idea she was that good of an actor. And later I find out that Julia isn't friends with that person because that person's in a clique and they don't want Julia in their friendship clique. But then she saw this part of her that she'd never seen before and heard her story. And that made her a human to her. Instead of just this girl in the class, it made her a human being just like herself. So they found common ground that way. It was less an inspiration and more a request. The principal, he said, hey, Mike, I know you do film stuff when you're not here. I worked at Glendale. Do you think that you could do like a, 3-minute video for our assembly coming up, our character assembly about bullying? You get some kids to do some sketches or something. I was like, 3 minutes, sure. And then we met Mrs. Scala, the school psychologist, and a few 4th graders, I think, maybe some 5th graders. I don't remember who was at that first meeting exactly. It was a semi-full classroom, and I was just kind of trying to gauge ideas from you guys as to what would be good bullying stories to tell. Like what is kind of the common denominator of bullying in this school? And the ideas were so good and free-flowing that I was like, this is a much longer than 3-minute sketch. This could be a nice half-hour little package movie. So I asked Mr. Egan, I said, can we make a longer movie? And if we do, it's going to take me more time, and I'm doing this for free. So can I also put it on YouTube as a calling card, like as work that I've done that people can look at and see the work I've done and hire me for their stuff? He's like, yeah, just get permission and that's fine. So we shot it. We shot all the frame stories, and then we didn't have a through line story. We didn't have like the story where they're at lunch in the library talking. That was the last thing we wrote. Like we wrote the Franco scene. We wrote the Liliana scene. I don't remember what her character name was. We wrote all those and just did those vignettes and had nothing to tie them together. So we tied them together with that story and put it online. And the rest was kind of history. It went viral. It got picked up. A school in Australia called us and said, that was great. Can you come here and do one here? And we went to Australia and did that. So the inspiration was more of just doing something that the principal had asked, and then hearing that tons of great stories from the kids, great stories meaning sad stories because it was bullying, but and the excitement that the students had too to make this. So we had little backstage passes for anybody that took to speed through the lunch line so they could come and shoot in the library during lunch, and people stayed after school, came early before school and filmed also. So the inspiration came after the inception, really. Like it was a cool thing to do anyway, but then as we were doing it more and more, I was way more inspired as the weeks went on by the stories and by seeing kids who never acted before act, groups of kids together who don't usually interact, acting and working together. So it came late but strong. I like the fact that a lot of our characters we don't ever see again. So it gives classrooms a chance to discuss, well, do you think Franco's still like that? Do you think his experience being chased on a bike changed him? Or do you think he's out there, deflating tires now? Because the world isn't perfect. The world, we don't usually end, we ended the first How to Unmake a Bully on a will he or won't he note. He goes to pull her hair and then he doesn't, but does that mean he's reformed, or is that just one step he's taken to be better? And Russell has kind of carried through the whole thing. And then I don't know if you've seen our last movie, but we leave that ambiguous too as to how Russell turned out. So because life is ambiguous, and nothing ever wraps up nicely with a bow, so our stories are also very realistic in that sense, I feel, as unrealistic as some of the bystander moments might be. What resonates, I feel, a lot of the teachers and kids that I work with, especially when I worked at a local high school here, the tenets of our program are such that we don't use the word bully, we don't use the word victim. We kind of rebrand what bullying is. So what I teach is that bystanders can be one of two things. They can be positive or negative. They can be upstanders, or they can be not great bystanders. There's not a downstanders. There's not a word for that. But you can either be a bystander who helps or a bystander who doesn't help. So that's the bystander quotient. Then there's the victims. I don't use the word victim because the idea of being a victim tends to weigh you down. It's like this heavy cloak that you're wearing, and you take it from room to room. You don't just leave it where it happened. You drag it through your day. You offload it on others. It affects your relationship with someone 3 hours after the first impact, So victimhood is hard to shake because it's this vague feeling of negativity, of I feel bad because of. And you might not even know that because of. I feel bad today. Why? I don't know. I just feel bad today. I'm a victim today. Well, it's because on the bus you got made fun of, and that made you feel like a victim. And now through the whole day, you're letting that one event kind of paint who you are the rest of the day or how you're going to behave. So we switch it around to say that people who get bullied are targets. They are targets in the moment. They're being aimed at, and they can tell what they're being aimed at. If an arrow sticks in your shoulder, oh, there's an archer somewhere shooting an arrow at me, right? Look for the archer, stay away from the archer. So if you're a target at lunch and it's because Jimmy is at lunch and Jimmy is making fun of you all the time at lunch, now you have options. You've identified the time of day, when and where and who is causing you to feel like this victim. So you're being targeted. But when you leave lunch and you go to your art class, Jimmy's not there. No one in that class makes you feel like crap. In fact, they appreciate your drawing, or they just ignore you because they have their own things to do. So in that moment, you can drop that feeling of being a victim, that feeling of being a target, and just be yourself, because you're in a space where Jimmy is not. And you've taken that cue of who's targeting me and why, and you've assigned a value to it. So now that if that value isn't in your space, you have a whole new set of values to work with now. Jimmy's away. You can talk to someone about Jimmy. Oh man, Jimmy's bothering me at lunchtime. He's bothering me too. Oh, really? He's bothering you too? Oh, it's not just me. So you talked about it with someone, found out that you're not the only person he's bothering. That makes you feel even better. You know, you're part of a group of people that Jimmy's bothering. Or if it is just on you, they say, oh yeah, you know why? Because you beat him at, I don't know, kickball, and you kind of gloated about it, and he didn't like that. Well, I gloated because I won. It's his fault. That's on him. I'm going to feel proud of having won, and if that's his only problem with me, I can ignore that. I know what the problem is now. And then the crown jewel is the bully. We don't actually say bully in my classes. I know it's called How to Unmake a Bully. I should have called it How to Unmake Bullying, honestly, but I didn't know. I didn't have the tenet in my head until like several years after we did our first movie. So the word bully to me is a label. It's a label that you can call someone stupid, dumb, ugly, and if they go home, they're going to feel stupid, dumb, or ugly, you know, if they're told it enough times. So a person who is bullying other people, if they're called a bully all their life, they might just feel like that's who they are and identify with it. You know, like you said, you're in your mode of figuring out who I am and what is my place in this world. Well, they're always calling me a bully, so I guess that's who I am, you know. And whether they articulate that out loud or in their head or not, it's becoming part of you. You know, if someone calls you ugly enough, no matter how much makeup you put on, no matter how many times people say your hair looks good, you're gonna look in the mirror and see an ugly person because it's just been drilled into your head. But it's also calling someone a bully, not giving them a chance to change. And we want them most of all to change. So if saying you're a bully, leave us alone, it doesn't tell them what they're doing to you and doesn't tell them how they can change that. Some people who bully others don't know they're doing it. You know, hey, when you call us those things, it bothers us. We don't like you around because it makes us feel bad. Now that person has a choice. Oh, saying these things causes strife for this group. If I stop, they won't have a problem with me and I can hang out with them. If I keep going, they're going to kick me out of their friendship group. They're going to bully me back. They're going to get friends on me. We're going to have a problem. So now you're actively, as a person who bullies others, going towards a goal. Should I stop and make things better for this person because they just told me what they want me to do? Or am I going to go this way and make it worse for them because I don't care what they think? So saying that you're a person who bullies instead of a bully puts the word person first. We are all people, but we're people who do things, and you're bullying. So if you can take away that bullying part, you become just a person again, who now can make a choice as to what that other half is. I'm a person who draws. I'm a person who plays sports. I'm a person who has trouble with music, and if you bother me about it, I'm going to punch you in the face, you know, whatever it is you decide to do after that. But you're not bullying anymore because somebody stepped in and said, here's what you're doing, here's why it needs to stop, here's what you can do otherwise, and if you don't, this is what's going to happen. Once that's clear to you and you can make those choices, you can decide, am I a person who bullies and doing this thing that people don't like, or am I going to take that away, stop doing that, and just become a person again who now has the option to fit into this group or ignore the group altogether. Rules are no good without context, I feel. So if you can say to somebody, here's what you're not allowed to do, and here's why, and it makes sense to them, they won't do that thing. Some people will find a way around it. There's always those little lawyers in fourth grade who say, oh, but you said do this and I did that, so that's not technically the same thing. You're like, yeah, okay, but now we're going to put that in with it. All right, but you said, you know, there's that nonsense, which carries through high school sometimes. So like without context, you can break them, you can bend them, and you have no reason to follow them. So anytime I'm teaching, you know, I say, this is a very hot light. I don't want anyone touching it because it won't leave a mark, but it will burn you and be uncomfortable, and you don't want that to happen. And the only person allowed to touch it is our lighting person over here. I give all that explanation, and then I say, so therefore, no touching this light, you know? It's like a beginning, middle, and end of a story, you know? Or a joke. You don't just tell the punchline and move on. People are like, what does that mean? You have to tell the first part of the joke for it to make sense. So same thing goes with a rule. I think you need to tell the reason why this rule is in place, how it's going to affect you if you don't follow it, how it'll help us if you do, and then kids will be more likely to say, okay, oh, that makes sense. That makes, because if anything, those little fourth grade lawyers are masters of logic also, you know, like, all right, I can't argue that. That makes a lot of sense, you know, and I'll follow that rule. Fine, Mr. Mike. And I've, knock on wood, I've worked with almost 11,000 students in the past 10 years, and not once has anyone been injured by a light. And I bring hot lights. I bring Hollywood movie lights to these shoots because I feel because I've been clear about the rules, enough that kids then see, I can't go near that light because he said all these things about it. I'm tempted to, but I also respect Mr. Mike enough not to. And that's the other part of it, is respect. If you're giving a rule, no matter how much context you give, if no one respects you, and I'm talking to the teachers out there, if the kids don't respect you, they're not going to follow that rule just because they want to disrespect you. It could make total sense. Do not put a fork in the light socket because it will electrocute you and possibly fry your brain. Oh, I don't like Mr. Smith, so I'm going to try it anyway. That's a extreme example, which hopefully no one follows. But my point is, if you're, like you said, sensory overload, if you're constantly telling your kids, telling your students, or your kids at home, do this, do that. Here's the work. Here's this. You need to know this. High school's coming soon. College is coming soon. All that stuff is important to know. But then you pile on top of it these rules that tell them what they can't do. It all kind of becomes this mesh of nonsense. So giving context, giving them confidence, and then in turn them respecting your decision. And respect means follow through on things. Don't just let things go, and that includes assignments. If your assignments due Friday and you give them, okay, I'll give you until Monday, that's okay. But then once Monday comes, that's got to be it. There's a respect that comes with good discipline. There's a respect that comes with listening, responding well. Teachers that say, oh yeah, whatever. Those aren't going to be respected teachers. But teachers that go, oh, that's interesting. It's not really what we're talking about right now, but I'm going to think about that later. Even if you don't think about it later, you gave them acknowledgement. So there are little ways you can find that respect. You can offer context, and then I think once you deliver a rule, it's generally followed. I could be, again, speaking from a level of naivete where it's worked for me, so therefore I feel like it should work for others. Just like I was saying earlier, how not everyone has the same experience. So from a place of privilege of being listened to as a teacher, I feel it's easy. There are some teachers out there who love their students and who will do anything for them and want them to succeed, and they're not being respected, and that's not fair. And they might not take what I say and say, oh, that doesn't work, and maybe it doesn't for them. So, it's hard for me to say one way or the other, but for me, it's always been context, confidence, and respect that make rules more easily followed. But if every elementary school in the district isn't doing the same thing, there's going to be a clash of beliefs. There'll be the kid that came from Glendale who had UnMake a Bully in their life, and I'm not going to say it's a be-all, end-all, but we'll just use it as an example. And then there's kids that came from Lincoln who didn't. They have a different idea of what anti-bullying is because they had someone come to their school and talk for 45 minutes, and then they did a coloring book, right? That's not going to teach them anti-bullying. There are some, and I won't say them by name, but there are some major organizations out here, worldwide organizations. All they do is they go into a school, they give a 45-minute speech on stage, which is boring and there's no interaction. Then they give each classroom a packet to do. And once they finish the packet, that school gets a gold star. Literally, they give them a gold star for their excellence in anti-bullying because they did this packet, that some kids probably scribbled on or threw away or lost, and nothing's getting absorbed. So it's got to be dynamic, and it's so hard to say. To me, the ideal school environment is one that's always dynamic, that's always offering context, that's always offering interest-based work. That's hard to do. It's hard to do, especially when some schools are struggling for funding or they have a lot of violent offenders who are just, it's very hard. It's very hard to keep the morale while also incarcerating, a third grader for making someone bloody on the playground.
And I think it was the experience of being the bully, the experience of feeling what like that group of kids were saying to me as I was playing that character. It's like, oh man, this is real. And if this happens, I don't want to experience that again. Mm-hmm. Obviously I'm a fantastic actor, so I just walked away like nothing happened. But no, like for real, like my thoughts were like, oh man, like I cannot do that because I cannot have 20 people be like, you cannot do that to others. Like it was scary. It was a very real thing. But again, the experience is where everyone seems to learn the best, I think.
And a lot of classrooms, they do try to do, there's a lot of classroom activities that are, okay, everybody stand up, get a partner, we're going to act this out. And those are great. I love anytime that you put it on the student to come up with the material, to, you give them point A and point C, but you don't tell them what B is, and they find something. Doing this program with his teacher out west, he started doing more projects with his kids that were student led. He didn't have he loved his kids. He just didn't have faith that they could do a student led project. And after my program, he said to me, Mike, I'm going to do it now because you just showed me that it's possible. And now the kids they grow food in the garden, they make salads out of that food, and then they invite people from restaurants around the town to come in and judge their salads, and the winner gets like a gift certificate or something. But they have to make those cold calls. They make the banners with the restaurant names on it so that each one has an advertisement around their tables. Like, the kids are doing all that, and they wouldn't have done that before if it wasn't, I say this, it wasn't for my program there, but if it wasn't for somebody showing that if you give them a task, they will do it if you give them a reason, if you give them excitement for it, context, and that they see the product, they see the result, And I feel like that's UnMake too. To help students in your school become more responsive to the rules, the culture, of that school, I think context is a big thing, and also making it dynamic, making kids, for lack of a better word, act it out or become active participants in those decisions. Instead of saying bullying is wrong because of this, what I do, I walk in and I say, why is bullying wrong? What is bullying to you? How has it affected you?